Hey guys, let's look at quadratic equations today. A couple of little parts to this, and let's just define it first. A quadratic equation is obviously an equation with an equal sign, which we try to solve for a variable. There are the two things it has. It has one unknown, which 90% of the time you're going to see is x. Okay, so just x equals this, this, and that. And the degree of this is 2. So in other words, you're going to have an equation that has an x in it, it has an x squared in it, and it has some numbers in it. So here are some examples of what a quadratic equation looks like. X squared equals 3x plus 7. There's one. All right. X minus 3 equals x squared. Okay, there's another one. X squared plus 9x minus 4 equals 0. There's another one. Notice all three of those have equal signs. They all have one variable, and they all have a degree of 2. In other words, the highest exponent value is 2. In other words, something squared. So let's look back at two methods that we have done on these. In fact, we've already solved these so far in two different ways. And let's take a look. Look at the very left side. That's method 1 we have used. And let's take a look really quickly. Hold on one second. All right, we have done the left kind of equation like this. Now, if you recognize this quadratic and you go, oh, wait a minute, I can factor this trinomial here into two binomials. All I'm looking for are two numbers, of course, x and x. They will add up to 2, this number, and they will multiply to give me -8, which means I'm going to have a negative and a positive. And of course, this is going to be -2 and then +4. Then we can go, oh, okay, well, x minus 2 is equal to 0, and x plus 4 is equal to 0. So we have two answers. X is 2 and -4. There are our two answers. We've also done, look at the right, we've done x minus 2 squared equals 3. Well, you know, we know how to solve this, right? Okay, we just take the square root of both sides. That's plus or minus the square root of 3. And we move the 2 over, or -2 over. Turns into +2, and there's our answer. So in other words, we know how to do those two, right? Okay, all we're going to do, and again, a decent chunk of what we're doing the rest of the year, is just making something that it looks new, look like something that we've done before. And this is a perfect example of today's lesson. Okay, let's go back. Remember completing the square? No, wait, you don't remember that. Remember doing this and squaring these. What this actually means is, of course, is x plus 1 times x plus 1, which will give us x squared, and then plus 1x plus another 1x, and then plus 1. Okay, let's do this. We got x plus 3 squared will give us this, and that'll give us, of course, x squared plus 3x and another 3x, then plus 9. And let's say we do the last one, which will be x minus 6 times x minus 6. That'll give us x squared minus 6x minus another 6x, and then plus 36. In other words, look at this one here, and notice the pattern. Notice a pattern here. Notice a pattern here. Now let's look at you know, these numbers here. This number here is just basically double this number, and this number here is this number squared. Same thing for here. The 6 is double the 3. The 9 is the square of 3. This one, -12, is double of -6. And 36 is the square of -6. That's going to play a part in what we're doing next. And there's just a method we're going to use. Take you a few weeks to get the method down pretty well. But after you get it down, it's like riding a bicycle. You're going to go, how in the world did I ever get along without knowing? Oh, I always know this. How could I have been so, not know it? So anyway, let's go back here. And we're going to go backwards now. We're going to factor each one of these at a time. So we know that this will be what? We'll factor, we need two numbers, one of which, they add up to 8, and they also multiply to give you 16. Of course, the answer is 4 both times. All right, this one, we need two numbers which add up to give you -10, and they multiply to give you +25, so that has to be two negatives, right? So of course the answer is a 5 and a 5. Okay, this one too, you probably recognize exactly what it is for the third one. Two numbers that add up to give you 14, multiply to give you 49. Well, that's going to be x plus 7, twice. Okay, now notice the pattern again. When you see this, you look at this and go, okay, that's going to be x plus 4 squared. Oop, this will be x minus 5 squared. Oop, this will be x plus 7 squared. And you kind of notice that the number that goes with the x is double what the actual number that's here, here. And you'll notice the last number is the square of that same number. We're going to use this to our advantage too. So let's go the left equation. Look at this left equation. How do we solve this left equation? In other words, does it look like one of the two methods we can use to solve the equations on the right? Now look on the right. We have done, just a minute ago, we did one like this, and we did one like this, right? I mean, we did this one, we just, we took the square root, and then we moved the 2 over, done. This one, we went, wait a minute, okay, let's see here. Let's see, x and x, of course. Minus must be a plus and a minus. Okay, that equals 0. See, I need two numbers. They add up to give me -2, and they multiply to give me -15. So that'll be, 3 and -5, and we got it. Okay, now look at the one on the left, the black one. Doesn't that look like one of those? It looks like the top one, right? Okay, the only problem is, you look at this and you go, okay, I need two numbers. They add up, to give me 8 if I add them together. And if I multiply them, they give me -2. Well, I mean, the factors of -2 are -2 and +1, or +2 and -1. Neither one of those groups, or those pairs, adds up to +8. So you look at this and you go, I mean, there's nothing I can do, okay? You also can't exactly do what's on the bottom here. How do we solve that? But that's a quadratic, right? There's the square root. the square. There's a square, and there's a square. So we got to do it one of these ways. That's the only two ways we know how to do it. So let's figure out what we need to do. Okay. Here's a question for you. What if the equation on the left, this one we just looked at a second ago on the last slide, what if we turned this equation into this equation on the right? Okay, well, let's first look at the equation on the right. If you look at this, you recognize that you go, okay, this is one of those, I'm going to factor this out. I need two numbers, they add to give me +8, right? And they multiply to give me 16. I got it. Okay, that's going to be x plus 4 times x plus 4 equals 0, right? Okay, we got it, no problem. Okay, well, in other words, we could just write it like this. You can actually write it so where it looks like the second type on the previous page. Like one of these, kind of, like that a little bit, all right? But let's look at this. Let's say you're looking at your Algebra 2 book and you're come across, problem 16 or whatever. And they say, okay, solve this equation. Could you do it? I mean, you could, right? I mean, you just go, wait a minute. I take the square root of both sides, x plus 4, then the square root of 0 is 0. Okay, x equals, move that, -4, got it, okay. And the reason you could do this, and you couldn't do the one on the left, look at the one on the left. To factor that in a way where you could turn it into this, you've got to have a 16 here, right? In other words, you look at that middle number right here, you go, okay, well, if I have a 16, well, that'll work. Just like these previous ones here, I have a 16, that'll work. In other words, if you had this equation, you would go, I need a 25 there to make it work. Because what you're doing is you're going, well, I need two numbers that add up to give me -10, and this number has to multiply to give me, two numbers to add up to give me -10, -5 and -5, right? And if you multiply them, you get 25. And over here, you go, I need two numbers to add up to give me 14, then I need 49. They must be both 7s. See, this has to be a 49. In other words, what we're going to do at this point in these types of problems, which are called completing the square, what we're going to do is we're going to work on a method to change this number, -2, into a number like +16. So how could we do it? Look at this equation. You tell me, what could I do to the equation on the left to turn it into the equation on the right? What would I need? What's the only difference in those two equations? Okay, what would you need to do, in other words, to the -2 to turn it into +16? You would need to go like this. You need to go x squared plus 8x, I'm just copying here, minus 2. Okay, then you'd have to go, wait a minute, I don't have negative 2, I need a 16. I need to add 18, right? That's what you need to do. But what you would also need to do, since this is an equation, you are going to have to go, I have to add 18 over here as well. Okay, you see what I just did? Okay, so in other words, we're going to write this, not strung out like that, but we're going to go x squared plus 8x plus 16, and in other words, this will look like that. So we can take this on the left side and go, oh, wait a minute, what two numbers, add to give me 8 and multiply to give me 16? 4 and 4, x plus 4 squared equals 18. I'll stop right. Look at that big, look at this part right here. Let's go back, pretend you're in your algebra book, right? They say, problem 27, here, can you solve this? You would look at that and go, oh yeah, I can do that. I just take the square root of both sides. Okay, x plus 4. And then I go, okay, let's see, plus or minus the square root of 18. Move it over, you're done. Everybody there? Okay, that's what we're doing. That's what completing the square is. And they will give you problems like this. Solve this by completing the square. And this method you are going to want to get down. And once you do it 5 or 6 times, it'll be slow. You'll kind of figure out what's going on here. What do I do? Then it'll start boom, 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 and these will be problems in your problem set that'll be really fast. So pause it if you need to. Copy this down. Let's do it together. Okay, I'm assuming you've paused it. Okay. All right. Well, x squared plus 6x minus 4 equals 0. Now let's very quickly do something over here on the right. Okay, if we do something like this and go x squared plus 6x, if we had a number here that was not a negative 4, in other words, we're not going to be able to factor this. There are no numbers, two numbers that if you add them up, they give you 6, and the same two numbers multiply to give you negative 4 doesn't exist. They don't exist. Okay, we know from the old versions back here, like these types, that if you look at what happens here, you go, the reason we know these are going to be 4s is because you take this number in the middle, half it, square it, and you get that number. If you take this number here, take half of it, negative 5, square it, positive 25, that's what you get. You take this number 14, half it, 7. 7 squared, 49, boom, then we can do this with it, okay? That's what we're going to do here, okay? So what we need to do is we need to look at this number right here, and we need to go, okay, we have a positive 6 there. The number I need is not negative 4. I'm going to have to take half of 6, which is 3, and square it. That's the number I need. So obviously half of 6 is 3, squared is 9, okay? We do not have a 9 here. We have a negative 4. So to get from negative 4 on the number line to positive 9, we're going to have to add 13. All right? Equation, do it to both sides. Okay? So let's rewrite. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 13. Now we're in business. Because what we can do now is look at this and go, okay, I have a way to factor this. We know that two numbers that will, add to give you 6 and multiply to give you 9, they're both 3's, right? So we can just call it x plus 3 times x plus 3. Or let's just skip a step and go x plus 3 squared. That equals 13. And again, look at that blue equation. You know how to solve these. You know how to do that. You've done this before many times. Okay, let's do it again. All we do is take the square root of both sides. X plus 3 equals, don't forget your plus or minus, the square root of 13. Okay, one last step, you move it over. So we have x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 13. That is our answer. We did it. And, again, you are taking this, one of these that won't work because of that. You are changing that into something that will work. The way you do it is you look at this number right there. Half the number, square it, that's where you want to end up. Now don't just add 9 because, it's supposed to be 9, no, if you add 9 to negative 4, you get 5, that won't work. you're going to have to add a number that will get you all the way to 9 right there. Okay, let's try it again. All right. 2x plus x squared minus 5 equals 0. Complete the square. So pause it if you need to. Okay, first off, I don't like the order of this. I'm going to go ahead and write it in descending order. X squared plus 2x minus 5, I'll leave a little space here, equals 0. Okay, well, let's look at the number. We know this is not, we don't want a negative 5. We're going to look at this number right here. Remember last slide we went to the 6, so we went, okay, the number we want there is half of 6 squared. So half of 6 is 3 squared is 9. Half of this number is 1 squared, it will be 1. Okay, we don't want negative 5, we want a 1 there. So what do we have to add here to negative 5 to get 1? 6, right? Add 6, add 6. So now we have a new equation. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 6. Now we're in business. Okay, we look at this, we recognize we can factor this now, which is the whole reason we did it, is so we could factor it. All right, well, we know the two numbers that multiply to give us 1 and add to give us 2 are 1s. They're both 1s. We don't have to write x plus 1 twice. We can just write it squared. That equals 6. And we take the square root of both sides, plus or minus the square root of 6. We move the 1 over, it turns into negative 1. And boom, there we go. That is our answer. Kind of a weird answer. I'll show you some examples in the future here that are actually integers, like normal ones. And you'll see this method does actually work. It's kind of really freaky to see it. Okay, let's try another one. We're going to complete the square again. This is where it gets interesting, okay? You like fractions? I hope you like fractions, because if you don't, well, I guess I can't help it that much. But anyway, this is dealing with fractions. So, all righty, let's take a look. Let's get it in the right order. X squared, move it over, minus 5x, move it over, plus 5. I'll leave some space there, equals 0. Now here's where it gets funky. Okay, we know that we need this 5 is not what we want. Okay, we don't want a 5 there. And the way we figure out what number we want here is we take half of this number here and then we square it. Well, if you take half of negative 5, you don't want to mess with decimals. It doesn't work this way. So you're going to have to just simply put it over a 2. That's half of that number, negative 5 halves. But of course, the number you want here is not a 5. You're going to have to square this thing, right? And we know how to square it. It'll be 25 over 4. So we want this number to be 25 over 4. Okay, well, that's not 25 over 4. But what we can do, if you want to make it easy, is just go, boom, I don't want that 5 there. What is that, black ink? Okay. But it's a 5. We can put something over 4, which of course will be 20 over 4. Makes sense? Okay. In other words, we haven't changed it. We've just changed the fact that it's just over 4. Okay. We don't want 20 over 4. We want 25 over 4. All right. So we need to go back, and we're going to have to add to both sides 5 over 4. We there? Okay, here's our new equation. X squared minus 5x plus 5/4. Oh, excuse me, 25/4, my bad. Equals 5/4. Okay. Well, this is where we factor this thing. Let's go back and look at what we just did. Remember the last page? We just took this and went, okay, half of this number is going to be the number we see in here. Okay, let's go back here. We go, half of this number is going to be the number we see in here every single time. So all we need to do is go back in there and go, okay, well, this negative 5, we're just going to need half of that number. That's what's going to be the second part of this equation in parentheses, or these terms in parentheses. In other words, you're going to have x minus half of this, 5 halves, and then square it. That's going to equal 5 over 4. Now let's stop for a second and look. We can tell that negative 5 halves times negative 5 halves is going to be positive 25 over 4, right? Okay, if we add negative 5 halves to negative 5 halves, we get negative 10 halves, right? Which we just reduce that. That's negative 5, which is what we want right here. So you don't have to wonder what this number is going to be inside here. It's not like a big mystery. You just take this number and you chop it in half. It's always going to work. Okay. In other words, again, let's pretend we're in our Algebra 2 book and they say, okay, number, I don't know, number 18, solve this equation. You look at that and you go, oh, yeah, it's easy. Okay, let's see. I take the square root, x minus 5 halves, and let's see here, plus or minus the square root of 5/4. That'll be, by the way, the square root of 5 over the square root of 4. Remember that? Which will just be plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2, right? Square root of 4 is 2. Last step we do is we take the 5 halves and move it over. That's going to be positive 5 halves plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. If you actually wanted to put both of these numbers, this one and that one, over one denominator, since the denominators matched, that's fine too, but that's the answer. And that's just about the most complicated that'll get. Oop, there's my email. Just about the most complicated that'll get because of the fraction. Now, at some point in the future, we will be doing with these with what they call imaginary numbers, but there's very little difference in messing with these with imaginary numbers. Okay. All right, well, let's take a look at one of the practice problems. The problem type they have chosen for you, if you look at the x, how many x's do you have? It's not x squared, but you have 9x, right? So that's an odd number. So if it's an odd number, it won't be a nice integer that you're chopping in half and then squaring. So you're going to have to mess with fractions. So pause it, let's give it a whirl, and we'll come together in a couple of minutes. Okay, well, first off, let's write this thing in a nice, neat order. X squared minus 9x plus 7, I'll leave some space there, equals 0. Okay, that's the order we want it in, okay? Now the question is, we don't want no 7. What does that number need to be? Well, the way we figure out what number it needs to be is you chop this thing in half, which will be this, negative 9 over 2. Then you square it, which will be, good grief, 81 over 4? Yeesh. Okay, what a mess. Okay, well, okay, this is what we have here. Let's rewrite the 7. So I'll rewrite this. You tell me, what does it need to be? How many over 4? So it matches. What's 7? How many over 4? Okay, 28, right? Okay, there you go, 28. Okay, so we've got 28 over 4. We need to have it at 81 over 4. So if you just do the the arithmetic, you're going to see that you're going to need to add 53 over 4, right? So 8 plus 3 is 11, 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 11, 81. Okay. Plus, of course, on the right side, 53 over 4. All right, let's rewrite this mess here. So we got x squared, we got minus 9x, we got plus 81 over 4. That's going to equal 53 over 4. Okay. All right, now we are going to factor this thing, and it always works perfectly because we've set it up to be. And don't forget, you don't have to wonder what this number right here is going to be. It's always half of the middle number. So minus and then a 9 over 2. That's what it will be, okay? 53 over 4, I'm just copying that again, okay? All right. So, again, let's pretend we're looking at our math book. Oh, here's your problem. Do you know how to solve this? Of course I do, yes. Okay, take the square root. X minus 9 halves. All right, the square root, okay, plus or minus the square root of 53 over the square root of 4, which of course we know is 2, okay? Last step, we just mash that 9 halves over, and if you want to go ahead and put both of them, since they both have a denominator of 2, just put them both over 2. It's fine to do it that way, okay? That is completing the square. And if you're confused about anything, go back and take a look at it again, and hope that went well. Thanks, guys.